What's going on, YouTube? We're back at it for another video, and today we've got that new stratagem inside of Helldivers 2. We're talking about the Commando, the newest in the lunchbox stratagems that we have available to us. That's going to be one of those that has that ham and cheese cracker blaster 4-piece inside of it, straight out of Lunchables Extreme. We're talking about the Commando. Now, some people in other videos or comments as well have been stating that this might be the new best stratagem in the game. I wouldn't necessarily say it's going to be the best stratagem in the game, but I'd say it's one of the better dispensable rocket launchers available, and in some cases it may even be better than those that you can actually reload. Considering it has a low cooldown time, pretty much no reload time as well, 4 available rockets, but it also does have less damage than every one of the other rockets, including the E-17. Which can hinder it a little bit in certain situations, but in combination with other stratagems as well as other players, the Commando can be a very powerful force and be a lot more reliable and impactful than our previous 2 stratagems that have come into the game, namely the Emancipator and the Airburst rocket launcher, which is more than likely why a lot of people are considering this to be one of those better stratagems coming into the game, since it truly does feel like one that has come in balanced and has added some fun factor to the game, and a little bit to the actual build diversity, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Now, it also does come with the fun factor of laser-guided missiles, which can be a blessing and a curse. At times, it can be beneficial to you, but at other times, if you completely forget that it's laser-guided, you may get in one of those situations where you fire it off and then immediately start looking in a different direction, and, well, there's a wasted rocket right there, so do keep that in mind while playing with this. But now let's talk about its uses when it comes to facing off with both factions against the Liberation Front. And we'll start off with the TERMINID. And when it comes down to the TERMINID, it's not exactly the most useful stratagem, but it can be pretty powerful in combination with other stratagems. More specifically, something like the Rocket Sentry, or possibly even in combination with the Rocket Pods. Considering its low cooldown, we do have the capability of 2-shotting any one of the chargers, whether it is the regular charger or the charger behemoth. Now, do keep in mind, when facing off with either one of these chargers, sometimes you may not want to double pull that trigger as fast as you can, as in certain instances the first rocket may bounce that charger into a different position and your second rocket may not hit the same forehead that the first one did. Considering the first rocket may just stagger that charger back, and then your second rocket may end up hitting the leg or possibly just behind the head over onto its shoulder. I've had this happen a couple of times, so it can be frustrating. You can sometimes double pull that trigger and immediately just blow the face off of that charger, but in general there may be some times where you may be at a bit of a distance where you may want to pull it one at a time, just to ensure that you do not waste any rockets. And I do wish that the regular charger still got one shot by this, whereas the charger behemoth was the only one that ended up needing 2 of the rockets from this. But I do know that this does have less damage than the E-17, and I'm pretty sure the only way that they'd be able to gain the access of the Commando being able to one-shot a regular charger would end up further decreasing its overall head armor, which more than likely they won't be reducing that head health anytime soon. And if you're looking to take down some of these charges with just one shot, you can also accompany this with the Rocket Sentry and be able to just land one shot to stagger it and allow that Rocket Sentry to finish it off, if there's no other targets that it does start actually attacking on. I still wish that the new ship module that gave mortars the capability of locking onto marked targets would also account for basically every other sentry in the game. I don't know why they didn't do that, but that's a topic for a different video. Coming up right after that, when it comes down to dealing with Shrieker nests, it will take 3 shots. I wouldn't highly suggest this. This is also going to be the same amount that will be needed for facing off with a spore tree as well, so don't end up wasting your rockets on that one. I would highly suggest just using a different stratagem entirely in order to take them down, unless you're just already off cooldown and you're just ready to pop off some of those rockets. But thankfully, it's only a 2-minute cooldown, so it's not long before it's back up and ready. Just after that, we've got the BILE Titan, which you can take down a BILE Titan in just 2 rockets from this if you hit it directly in the forehead. This can be a little bit more troublesome in certain instances, especially if you're knee-deep in all of the mess going on with some type of bug breach, multiple bugs on top of you, and that thing's moving towards you. It can be troublesome to get those 2 shots into the forehead, and if you do not land those 2 shots into the forehead, very easily the BILE Titan can absorb all 4 of these rockets, and it can almost feel like a complete waste. But if you're looking to get it done, I would highly suggest aiming the blue laser just a little bit above the head itself. It seems to fire a little bit lower than the actual laser or the circle reticle that we have available to us, and that should make it a little bit easier to get that target acquisition, but I'm not about to blow smoke up your bum. It's not always going to be easy to take down those Bile Titans with just 2 shots. It's not always going to be as consistent as you want it, but it can be done. It just may take a little bit more effort than I'd like to put in personally. But beyond that, it's another one of those moments where if you paired this with rocket pods or possibly the rocket sentry, it could make dealing with those Bile Titans a little bit easier. And last but not least, when it comes down to taking down bug holes, this is actually a really powerful tool and can make taking out bug nests a whole lot easier, considering you don't have to hit directly dead center of any one of the bug holes. I really hope that this is not a bug, and if this is a bug, I really hope that they do not fix it, because it is much easier to come up to a bug hole and be able to shoot over towards the edge of it instead of having to nail it directly in there, and it's just a whole lot more fun. Having the capability of just being able to easily land 4 of these shots on any one of those bug holes, even if it seems it's a little bit off, it still closes it up. There's nothing better than that moment. So when it comes down to blitz missions, this is definitely one that can be extremely powerful, especially with its low cooldown. But now let's move on to the automatons, where I think the Commando actually does a little bit better, or at least it has a bit more versatility when it comes down to the capabilities of what it can destroy and how quickly it can destroy them. Starting out first, we've got the gunships, which I have complained about this several times, that there's basically not very many stratagems that are capable of taking down the gunships. More specifically, it seems as though the sentries and the support weapons are about the only ones that can get it done, and generally you'll want to use the autocannon, or more specifically the laser cannon, to get it done as efficiently as possible. The rocket sentry has come in as a close second that does pretty nicely at it, but generally it's still another one of those moments where it can get distracted by other targets before it starts taking out every one of those gunships in the sky. But now we do have another piece to the arsenal, with the Commando being able to one-shot gunships if you land the shot on one of the engines. I'm a little bit irritated by this. I kind of wish it would be wherever it landed on one of these gunships. I wish this, no matter what, would be able to take out a gunship in just 1 round, as if you just hit the main body of it, it will end up being a 2-shot moment. But thankfully, with the laser guidance, we will be able to actually just hone in on one of those engines, making it a little bit easier, but at the same time, it's still a bit frustrating with how these things bob and weave, so in certain instances, you may find yourself missing those shots at times. And I wonder whether or not this is possibly the anti-aircraft weapon we were supposed to get way back when, before we actually destroyed the automatons for the first time. We had that one failed major order before the gunships came in that said we were working on some type of anti-aircraft weaponry. But since we failed that one, I don't know whether or not it just didn't get pushed through, or possibly even the airburst was supposed to be that type of weapon. But that's just a personal thought there. But overall, it's nice to have another stratagem that has the capability of dealing with those gunships in a little bit easier fashion. Coming up right after that, we've got the tanks and the cannon turrets that are all across the entire map. Sometimes they can be pretty frustrating, but with the Commando, it is very easy to eliminate these as quickly as possible. From any different direction, all you have to do is land 2 of the shots from one of the Commando rockets, and you'll be able to just annihilate any one of these turrets or these tanks that you may be facing off with. This was something that was always really frustrating for me, especially when it came down to the spear. Inside of the spear's little cutscene, or the showcasing of it inside of the ship management, it always showcases that it one-shots the heavily armored tanks, but it never actually does that generally. And every one of the other rockets is still going to be 2 rockets themselves, so it's quite nice to have something where I don't have to reload, I don't have to pick up another EAT-17, I can just immediately fire off both of those rockets and eliminate that threat as quickly as possible. Coming up right after that, emplacements. This is actually going to be huge for being able to take out any one of the anti-aircraft or mortars. It will only take 1 rocket to any one of those emplacements of the anti-aircraft guns or possibly the mortars in order to just destroy the one, and you'll be able to clear out an entire base with just 1 use of this. And since it's a low cooldown type of stratagem, this just makes it super efficient and just being able to clear up some of those side objectives and making life a whole lot easier on you and your team. And even more so in some of those situations where you may be underneath one of those stratagem jammers. this is actually going to come in even more useful, and even more so when it comes down to the last thing we'll talk about when it comes to the good of the Commando for the automaton. Coming up right after that, we've got the Factory Strider. You'll need to somehow get up underneath it and shoot it 3 times into the belly, or at least that's how I got it done. Doesn't seem like there's much of an issue there. Not always is it going to be easy to get up under there. I would generally say you're better off truly just using one Eagle Stratagem or Eagle Airstrike and the Orbital Precision Strike. That 1-2 punch right there is probably the quickest way to get it done, especially from a distance. Personally, that's my favorite route. But if you're directly underneath one of those Factory Striders and this is your only option, well, 3 of those rockets is going to be able to take it down. Coming up right after that, we've got the Hulks, which the Commando does not do very well at taking out Hulks. It will be 2 shots to take off one of its arms or its legs, and if you're looking to take it down entirely from a distance, it will take 3 shots to the body in order to kill it. But there is one way to quickly eliminate it by just firing 1 shot, and generally it's going to be just throwing that stun grenade and then hitting that dead center red faceplate in the middle. You will be able to one-shot it in that moment, so if you are working with stun grenades as a part of your loadout, technically you could get 4 Hulks out of 1 Commando, so it's not bad in that sense. But in the rest of the moments where you don't have stun grenades or the capability of getting that precision shot on the dead center of them, it can eat up quite a few of those rockets. And coming up last when it comes down to the Fabricators. This is probably one of the crazier aspects of it. Something that I thought should have been possible from the beginning of the game with every one of the rockets. You know, any one of these rockets should be blowing up a Fabricator from just about any angle with its explosive damage. You shouldn't have to hit the vents specifically with it. Something like the autocannon or the grenades, things like that make sense, where it's not something that has the penetrative capability of destroying a Fabricator. But with a Commando right now, hitting a Fabricator at any portion of it will blow it up. Again, this is another one of those moments where I really hope this isn't a bug, and if it is a bug, this is something that I would really enjoy they leave in the game, as it just makes life a whole lot easier at dealing with some of these side objective targets, and even more so, it gets even better having this with the capability of destroying one of those Fabricators attached to one of those Stratagem jammers. From a distance, being able to blow that up, even if you don't have the angle on the vent, is going to be a huge benefit to the team and just make life a whole lot easier in some of those matches, and truly I hope that is something that they just keep into the game. This is not something I really want them to take out. It makes the Commando a lot more viable, and if they only allow the Commando to get it done, which wouldn't make much sense, but at the end point, I'd still enjoy having at least one of these explosive stratagems have the capability of getting it done from any angle. And if they do take this away, I think everybody's going to be very irritated by it, and I really hope they don't. But that's going to be all the benefits of the new MLS 4X Commando Ham and Cheese Cracker Blaster. That new lunchbox is going to be a powerful stratagem added to your combination of stratagems you have available to you. And it's definitely one that is a welcomed, refreshing stratagem to be added to the game. That adds a little bit more of that fun factor to it. That's probably like the #1 thing about this for me, is that it has been enjoyable to play around with this on both sides of the fight, regardless of whether or not it's a little bit more versatile on one side or the other. It's been something that has been readily available for a large portion of the match. It's fast firing, it's adding some explosive nature, and it's adding a little bit of build diversity along the way, especially when it comes down to just making like a full rocket loadout, which I'll be making some loadouts here in the coming future. If you'd like to see more of that content in the future, hit that subscribe button. We've got plenty more of that Helldivers 2 content coming in the future. But let me know down in the comments below, how are you enjoying the Commando? What's your stratagem combination that you've been putting together for this? Do you prefer using this against the automatons or the TERMINID? And if there's anything else that I missed when it comes down to what the capabilities are of the Commando, let me know down in the comments below. But on that note, if you'd like to see more content like this in the future, hit that subscribe button. And if you'd like to see some of this content live, hit that link down in the description below. Follow me over at Twitch. We'll be streaming daily. And on that note, have a good one.